Tonight, tributes from around the world to South Africa's Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who has died at the age of 90.
We raise our hands and we say, we will be free!
A towering figure in South Africa, Desmond Tutu was one of the driving forces behind the anti-apartheid movement, for which he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Tighter COVID restrictions begin in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, but no new rules for England. And England's batting crumbles again on the first day of the third Ashes Test in Melbourne. Good evening. Tributes have poured in from around the world for South Africa's Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who has died at the age of 90. Archbishop Tutu was a Nobel Peace Prize laureate and was considered as one of the driving forces behind the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa. The former US President Barack Obama described him as a mentor and moral compass, while Boris Johnson said he would be remembered for his spiritual leadership. Our Africa correspondent Andrew Harding looks back at his life.
Our hands and we say, we will be free!
Desmond Tutu was an exuberant figure, an outspoken Anglican priest who became one of the world's great moral voices. It was during South Africa's long and violent struggle against white minority rule that he rose to prominence, condemning the apartheid government, comparing them to the Nazis.
The system of this country, apartheid, is immoral. The system of this country is evil.
With Nelson Mandela hidden away in prison, Tutu soon became the face of South Africa's struggle for freedom and for justice.
He leaves behind a legacy, one of the last of the generation of people who told us that apartheid was wrong and stood up for human rights everywhere. And he never stopped doing that.
In 1994, Tutu was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize and used his global platform to criticize Britain and America for being too soft on the apartheid government. Eventually, Mandela was released, but the advent of democracy presented Tutu with new challenges in a country that he now dubbed the Rainbow Nation. Often in tears, Tutu presided over South Africa's Truth and Reconciliation Commission, seeking to expose and to heal the wounds of apartheid. He specialised in forgiveness, but with accountability. And that pursuit of justice continued, especially when South Africa's democratic politicians plunged into corruption.
I am warning you that we will pray as we prayed for the downfall of the apartheid government. We will pray for the downfall of a government that misrepresents us.
Inevitably, Desmond Tutu made enemies, but his genius was for winning people over. You could say, for provoking love.
He said to me once that when he dies, he hopes the epitaph will be very clear, that Desmond Tutu loved, he laughed, he cried. And that's what he was. He was always a man of tremendous joy.
The one thing that helps Desmond Tutu stand out and occupy this unique place in South African history is that he was there at every step of the way through this country's tortuous journey from apartheid to democracy and beyond, with that clear, moral, often angry, sometimes laughing voice, a man defined above all by his sense of hope.
Well, flags will fly at half-mast across South Africa, and a week of tributes is being organised to remember Archbishop Tutu. His funeral will take place on the 1st of January. Many South Africans have been gathering outside his homes in Cape Town and Soweto to lay wreaths and light candles. Our correspondent, Nomsa Maseko, reports from Soweto.
Paying their last respects. People from all walks of life dropped off flowers here at Desmond Tutu's Soweto home, demonstrating what the 90-year-old stood for. He was the voice of reason, the face of reconciliation, and South Africa's moral compass.
It's a dark day to us as South African because he's the light and the icon of this country.
He used to be a father to us. His wife used to be a mother to us.
It was Desmond Tutu, known affectionately as the Arch, who coined the phrase Rainbow Nation to describe South Africa's ethnic diversity.
More than any other, sometimes when you have some problems, you just go in him and then he'll just give you a prayer, and then we go to the chapel and he will pray for us every day when we have problems.
Several memorial services are expected to be held in honor of Desmond Tutu over the next few days. For people here in Soweto, they remember the Arch as a unifying figure who played a prominent role in South Africa becoming a democracy.
Flowers were laid in Cape Town too, where he died at his home surrounded by family and friends. A 7-day send-off is being planned, including a lying in state and a mass to be held by the Anglican Church. Nomsa Masego, BBC News, Soweto.
A man who was arrested within the grounds of Windsor Castle on Christmas Day while in possession of a crossbow has been detained under the Mental Health Act. Police responded to the security breach at 8:30 yesterday morning while the Queen was in residence. The Metropolitan Police say the 19-year-old man from Southampton is currently undergoing a mental health assessment. Tighter COVID restrictions are now in force in Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, with more changes due to come into force tomorrow. The measures include curbs on the hospitality industry and a reinforcement of social distancing rules. No further restrictions have been announced for England. Thomas Morgan reports.
Another festive holiday and another set of restrictions. Social life will be curtailed yet again in Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland as the devolved governments bring back measures in an attempt to slow the spread of the Omicron variant. And almost 2 years into the pandemic, this latest set of rules has been met with a mixed response in Cardiff.
Generally, I'm on board with them. I think at the moment they make sense, bearing in mind what we know.
People just want to be able to live their lives now. We're going to have to learn to live with COVID. It's here to stay.
Having only reopened a few months ago, nightclubs have had to turn their lights off once again in Wales and Northern Ireland.
We essentially had 4.5 months of trade and we're back here again. And the issue is that we're not clear when this will be lifted.
Across hospitality venues, the rule of 6 and social distancing measures are back in force from today in Wales.
That just lessens our capacity, so we're almost half of where we were before when without restrictions. But what it does mean is staffing, if not stays the same, but also increases because of the table service.
Spectators will be banned from large events and professional sports in Wales, with a limit on attendances in Scotland. And when it comes to household mixing, all three have guidance in place, not laws. While restrictions in Northern Irish and Scottish pubs and restaurants come into force tomorrow, the Stormont executive has said they will keep the measures under review, whilst First Minister Nicola Sturgeon told the public theirs would be in place for at least 3 weeks.
The Welsh Government's next 3-weekly review into these restrictions is due the end of January. But First Minister Mark Drakeford has said that they will be looking at these rules frequently, leaving the gates open for a potential easing of restrictions sooner rather than later if the spread of Omicron isn't as severe as originally thought. Thomas Morgan, BBC News, Cardiff.
Well, there's been no new government data on coronavirus in the UK over the Christmas weekend, but the surge in cases around the world has created travel disruption, with a big rise in flights being cancelled or delayed. Since Friday, more than 7,000 flights have been cancelled, according to the FlightAware tracking website. Flight operators said many pilots and crew had tested positive. Chinese and US airlines appear to be the hardest hit, with further delays and cancellations announced for tomorrow. Cricket and England have it all to do when day 2 of the third Ashes test gets underway in little under 2 hours' time. Another batting collapse saw them bowled out for 185 on Boxing Day. At the close of play, Australia, who lead the series 2-0, was 61 for 1. Joe Wilson reports.
Captaining Australia will challenge Pat Cummins sometime, someplace, but Melbourne, it's a breeze. Cummins took 3 early wickets himself, having won the toss himself. Still, England's captain looked like he could take on Australia on his own. Joe Root's timing and placement were impeccable until, on 50, he got out. The most telling reaction is Root's, furious with himself, and then he had to watch the rest. Ben Stokes had tried all sorts of shots. This was the last one he played into Australian hands. Now, did Jos Buttler's approach match the occasion? Straight to the fielder. It all gave the impression that it was all too easy for Australia. Johnny Bairstow made 35 on his return before he was surprised and caught. But 185 all out, no longer really a shock, is it? It's just the familiar pattern. There is feasibly just this coming day for England to act before it's too late. They've at least already got rid of David Warner, who was dismissed for 38. But every opportunity must now fall England's way, and of course they very rarely do. Ashes cricket becomes impossible with a series of false starts. Joe Wilson, BBC News.
The BBC radio presenter Janice Long, who was the first woman to have her own daily show on Radio 1, has died at the age of 66. In a broadcasting career that spanned 5 decades, she was also the first woman to present Top of the Pops. Our entertainment correspondent Lisa Mazimba looks back at her life.
It's for the band who've been together for a year. They come from Leighton Buzzard. It's their first appearance on Top of the Pops. It's Kasha-Goo-Goo.
Janice Long making history, the first regular female host on Top of the Pops.
It's U2 in at number 23 and New Year's Day.
She ended nearly 20 years of men dominating the presenting lineup.
I was absolutely thrilled to bits with the fact that I was introducing you to. I mean, that doesn't get, your first Top of the Pops.
All is quiet. Really enjoyed all the swap-arounds. It's been nice to...
Show business ran in the family.
I thoroughly enjoyed it, smashing.
Her first TV appearance was alongside her younger brother, Keith Chegwin, on the children's show Multicoloured Swap Shop.
Janice Long. Hello and welcome to the show. It's great to be
A year later, she joined Radio 1, the first woman to have a daily show on the pop music station.
The stadium was filled with 72,000 people. And hey!
As well as being a voice recognised by millions on the radio, she was one of the presenters at the Live Aid charity concert.
For which state is Edward Kennedy a senator?
And over the years appeared on a huge range of different TV shows.
Next week's Hit Parade with Peter, James, Barnard Powell and Gary Davis.
She'll be remembered as a female trailblazer and as someone with an infectious passion for music.
Janice Long, who has died at the age of 66 after a short illness. You can see more on all of today's stories on the BBC News channel, but that is all from me. Good night.